should India just be a stay away right now?
Oh, no, absolutely not. India is just way too big to ignore. It's way too exciting to ignore. It's a market that I get asked about all the time, and I've been asked about it for many, many years. Especially, I think, when China became a little bit less fashionable, everybody was looking for the next China, and India was kind of the obvious place to look. And India has lots of advantages that China does not, namely a much younger demographic, much more room to grow. It's a little bit further behind on the development curve. So there's a lot, I think, there to be excited about in India. Now, the challenge with India, it's a very hard market for foreigners to access. So the reason I can't tell you that much about Adani is just I've never been able to trade it. Most of the shares are on local Indian exchanges, which I have no access to. Any GDRs or ADRs that are located offshore don't meet any financial screens that I've ever looked at. So really, when it comes to Indian equities, I'm mostly looking at ones that I can trade offshore, which I do have good financial statements on.
But in that respect, because, you know, so much, I suppose, emphasis gets placed on the expectation of growth, but do you have the feeling that this isn't an endemic situation then? Is that what you're suggesting in terms of you still retain the confidence? Because you can mention names like, you've got to, it's Tata still, Infosys, the banking industry in India. So you're still relatively confident that these auditing issues, the potential auditing issues, I should say, rather, and the way in which the shares are being traded isn't, even if it is true, is an isolated kind of situation.
Well, it's hard to say isolated, at least if you believe the market this morning. You yourself were just showing the market moves. 4 of the 6 Adani companies are down significantly, but the overall market is basically flat. At least the rest of the market doesn't seem too worried that, Adani is going to be the next Lehman, or I'm trying to think of the right analogy here, of the one that's going to drag the whole system down. Now, I can tell you what does worry me in India is the valuation of the banks. I keep scratching my head whenever I look at HDFC, ICICI, and wondering on what planet would you invest in a country that has very high interest rates, but then the banks have a dividend yield of less than 1%. Now, I'm not exactly going to compare it to the valuation of Japanese banks back in the 1990s when they traded at 7 times book, even 3 times book. I think could be quite high. But if you ask me for a risk factor in India, the biggest one I see is that people are too optimistic about the growth, and they may be paying up a little bit too much for it. You see more of that with the banks than you do, I think, with names like Infosys, or even, let's say, foreign names that do business in India, which is another area that I look at.